Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to see you today. My name is Dustin Cormier. Welcome to another episode of How to Rock Astrology. This is the next part of our Outer Planets series. We've been talking... Ooh, I lost my picture here. I've been continuing a series where we talk about the outer planets as they relate to tropical Vedic astrology. I'm a tropical-based Vedic astrologer, and I'm trying to introduce the outer planets to the west, from the west to Vedic astrology. Today in particular, we are talking about significance versus stability and conduct. Well, this series is going to be talking about stability and conductivity of the outer planets because, of course, as you might have sort of intuited from our first series on the outer planets, in that series we talked about significance. How do you determine when there's a significant outer planet placement to an important planet in your astrology chart from the Vedic perspective and Vedic interpretation? This part of the series, we wanted to talk about the significance. Now we're going to talk about stability, what I call stability and conductivity. That's what's going on with this here part of our thing. You can see outer planets, stability, and conductivity, which is different from significance. Basically, what this is about is we're trying to see how stable, how to determine, how to quantify an outer planet which we see to have significance in the chart. Again, look in my previous video to define what significance means. Is there an outer planet in the ascendant? Is it touching the ascendant lord, the Lagna lord? Is it in an angle? Is it in an important angle? Is it in a yoga? Is it touching Rahu's lord or a Jaimini Karaka, etc.? That was significance. Now we're talking about, okay, so now we know that a planet has significance. How do we quantify the nature of the outer planet's effect on that significant point in the chart? So, thank you so much for coming, folks. This is an intro to that series. If you want to know more about me, visit dustincormier.net, where you can check out my new poetry book. And this is a picture of the main points in my chart. Leo rising, Scorpio sun, Sagittarius moon. I've also got like Venus and Jupiter in Virgo in the second house, Rahu, Uranus, Neptune conjunct Capricorn, all that fun such. It's just nice to have a little bit of context on the person giving you info. So, thank you for coming. I'm not going to waste too much time here. So let's get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. This is, again, part of our Tropical Vedic Astrology series, talking about bringing the idea of the outer planets from Western astrology and integrating the idea of the Vedic house and lord as they relate to these outer planets. Basically what I'm doing here is I'm combining traditional Vedic astrology interpretation methods with traditional Western astrology. Basically, the Western influence is the outer planets, as we see with this telescope. The telescope wasn't invented until, very late in the astrology game, so traditional Vedic astrology doesn't talk about them, but that doesn't mean that they're unimportant. So what this series is about is finding a peaceful dialogue of discernible truth between the two. Look at the earlier parts in this series to hear more about that. So, first part of our series, we talked about the significance of an outer planet and its lord's influence on our lives. Now, this series, part 2, we are talking about the stability and positive conductivity of the outer planets and their lords. We go in detail through case studies to observe examples of significant outer planet placements in order to define how they come through. Just because it's significant doesn't mean it's good or bad. And this is what I'm trying to... We use a checklist to determine the quality of this significant placement, because the two are not the same thing. It takes a keen astrologer's method to determine whether the transcendental powers available through the outer planets can be constructively and stably channeled through a person's chart. This method's brought to you by my interpretation of Ryan Kirksack's Astrology Apprenticeship Program. And essentially, how we kind of roll with things in tropical astrology is this little list right here is a very good sort of concise ideation of how to determine and quantify the nature and the positivity of a planet from the perspective of the lagna and just of the soul and the karma of the person in general. I always like to say, I guess I should say this really quick, I take a lot off of after Ryan Kirksack and Asheville Vedic Astrology Apprenticeship Program, but this is my own interpretation, my own guise, taking the lessons that I've learned from that tradition and interpenetrating it with the Western tradition that I kind of started in. I started in Western astrology, got into tropical. So I digress. This is all my own sort of ideation of all this stuff. So let's just get right into it, folks. This is the checklist that we're going to use in this series. And each one of these videos in this second part of the series is going to describe one aspect of this checklist. We're going to start off with Auspicious Yogas in our next video. For now, I'm giving you guys an intro. And I should say that this part of the series is breaking down these individual parts. And I just want you guys to know that when we get to the end of this part of the series, finally at the very end, we're going to do a case study of CHARLIE SHEEN throughout this whole thing. But at the end of this whole series, I'm just going to start really doing, blending all these techniques together. We've got to break them down first. You got to see each individual part, and then you're going to see how it all flows together at the very end of this part of the series. It'll be like a part 3 to the series. So